Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the podcast. Before we begin, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel. And if traveling has ever changed your perspective, tell us about it in the comments. Today, we're exploring an interesting question. Does traveling really change people? Many people describe travel as a life-changing experience. They say that visiting new places helps them see the world differently. New cultures, languages, and environments create unfamiliar situations. Those situations can challenge our usual habits.
Yes, travel often pushes people outside their normal routine. At home, we usually follow predictable patterns. We know the language, the customs, and the social rules. Everything feels familiar. But when someone arrives in a different country, many of those familiar structures disappear. Suddenly, the food, transportation, and communication may work differently. The traveler has to adapt.
That adaptation can create awareness. When we see different lifestyles and traditions, we realize that our own habits are not universal. They are simply one cultural perspective among many. Even small experiences can have an impact. A conversation with a local person, a different style of greeting, or a new way of sharing meals.
Those moments can expand perspective. Instead of seeing the world from one cultural viewpoint, travelers begin noticing multiple ways of living. That awareness sometimes changes how people think. At the same time, not every trip creates deep transformation. Some travel experiences are brief and focused mainly on tourism. Real change may depend on how deeply someone engages with the environment. The mindset of the traveler matters.
That raises an interesting question. Is it the destination that changes people, or the experiences and reflections that happen during the journey? The answer may be more complex than it first appears. When people travel to a completely new country, the first emotional reaction is not always excitement. Sometimes the experience feels confusing or even overwhelming. Psychologists often describe this reaction as culture shock. It happens when familiar rules suddenly disappear. At home, we usually move through life automatically. We understand how public transport works, how people greet each other, and how daily routines operate. These patterns feel invisible because they are so familiar. Travel removes that comfort.
Yes, and even simple activities can become challenging. Ordering food, reading signs, or asking for directions might require extra effort. When the language and customs are different, small tasks suddenly demand more attention. That mental effort can create stress. People may also feel uncertain about social behavior. A gesture that seems polite in one culture might carry a different meaning somewhere else. Travelers become very aware of their surroundings.
That uncertainty can feel uncomfortable at first. The brain prefers predictability and clear expectations. When everything feels unfamiliar, the mind needs time to adjust. Interestingly, culture shock often follows stages. At first, many travelers feel excitement and curiosity. Then confusion or frustration may appear. Eventually, adaptation begins.
Adaptation is the important turning point. After some time, travelers start understanding the environment better. They learn basic phrases, recognize local habits, and move more confidently through daily life. That learning process can become very meaningful. Instead of feeling overwhelmed, people begin appreciating the differences around them. The unfamiliar slowly becomes understandable.
In that moment, culture shock turns into cultural learning. The traveler starts seeing the world through multiple perspectives. What once felt confusing becomes fascinating. The experience becomes part of personal growth. After the initial culture shock, something interesting can begin to happen. Travel sometimes changes how people see themselves and the world. When we spend time in a different environment, our assumptions about normal life can start to shift. At home, our identity is often connected to familiar surroundings. We know our language, social roles, and daily habits. But in a new country, those familiar references disappear. People start observing themselves from a new perspective.
Yes, and that distance can be powerful. When you are outside your usual environment, you notice things about your own culture that you never questioned before. Everyday habits suddenly become visible. For example, travelers may notice how different societies approach time, communication, or social interaction. Some cultures move quickly and value efficiency. Others prioritize relationships and slower conversations. Seeing these differences can expand someone's worldview.
That exposure can also influence personal identity. A traveler might discover new interests, values, or perspectives. Sometimes they realize that certain assumptions they held were very limited. New experiences reshape their thinking. It's also common for people to develop more independence during travel. Navigating unfamiliar places requires problem solving. Small challenges, like finding transportation or communicating in another language, build confidence.
Over time, those experiences accumulate. Each interaction, conversation, and observation adds another layer of understanding. Travelers may begin seeing the world less as separate cultures and more as a connected human experience.
That broader perspective can influence decisions later in life. People may become more open to new ideas or different lifestyles. Travel can create curiosity about the world beyond one's home environment. It expands the mental map.
Of course, the depth of that change depends on how people travel. Someone who only visits tourist attractions might experience less transformation. But when travelers engage with local people and daily life, the experience can become deeply meaningful.
Beyond changing perspectives, travel also teaches many practical skills. When people move through unfamiliar environments, they constantly solve small problems. Finding transportation, communicating with locals, or navigating new cities. These everyday challenges quietly build useful abilities. One important skill travelers develop is adaptability. Plans often change during trips. A delayed train, a closed museum, or unexpected weather can force quick adjustments. Learning to stay flexible becomes essential.
Yes, travel often improves problem-solving skills. When something goes wrong, there may not be an immediate solution. Travelers must observe, ask questions, and experiment with alternatives. That process strengthens independent thinking. Communication skills also improve through travel. Even when people do not share the same language, they find creative ways to understand each other. Gestures, simple phrases, and patience become powerful tools.
That kind of communication builds confidence. At first, it may feel uncomfortable speaking with strangers in unfamiliar settings, but repeated interactions slowly reduce that hesitation. Social confidence grows. Travel can also strengthen observation skills. When entering a new culture, people often watch carefully. They notice how locals behave, how public spaces function, and how daily life flows.
That observation helps travelers adapt more smoothly. Instead of expecting the environment to match their habits, they learn to understand the local rhythm. Cultural awareness increases. Time management also becomes important. Planning routes, schedules, and budgets requires organization. Travelers must balance exploration with practical logistics. That responsibility develops planning skills.
When people return home, they often realize they gained more than memories. They developed resilience, communication skills, and adaptability. These abilities can influence many areas of life. Travel becomes a form of learning. Something else worth discussing is the difference between short trips and long travel experiences. Many people take vacations that last only a few days. Those trips can be enjoyable and relaxing, but they may not always lead to deep personal change. During short visits, Travelers often remain in a tourist perspective. They visit famous landmarks, take photos, and explore new places quickly. The experience can be exciting, but it may stay mostly on the surface.
Yes, time plays a very important role in understanding a new culture. When someone stays in a place for a longer period, daily life begins to replace tourism. The traveler starts experiencing the environment more realistically. Small routines begin to form: buying groceries, using local transportation, and interacting with people in everyday situations. These ordinary moments create deeper understanding.
That deeper exposure can lead to stronger cultural awareness. Travelers begin noticing subtle differences in communication styles and social norms. They observe how people solve problems and organize their lives. The culture becomes more visible. Long stays also encourage stronger relationships. Instead of brief conversations with strangers, travelers may form friendships with local residents. Those connections provide insight into everyday life.
And those personal connections often leave the strongest impression. Hearing personal stories, sharing meals, or discussing different viewpoints allows travelers to understand the culture from inside rather than outside. The experience becomes more human.
With time, travelers may also begin adjusting their own habits. They adapt to local rhythms, food, and communication styles. That adaptation can subtly change their identity and worldview. The transformation happens gradually.
So the depth of travel experience often depends on time and engagement. Short trips provide inspiration and discovery. Longer stays allow understanding and personal change. Both have value, but they influence people differently.
One of the most meaningful effects of travel may be the development of empathy. When people meet individuals from different cultures, they begin hearing stories and perspectives that are very different from their own. Those conversations can challenge assumptions. At home, it is easy to imagine the world through a single cultural lens. News, education, and daily conversations often reflect familiar viewpoints. But travel introduces new voices and experiences. Suddenly, the world becomes more complex.
Yes, direct human interaction makes a big difference. Reading about another culture in a book is informative, but speaking with someone who lives that experience creates a deeper emotional connection. When travelers share meals, conversations, or daily routines with local people, they begin recognizing similarities as well as differences. Despite cultural variation, many human concerns remain universal: family, work, relationships, and hopes for the future.
That recognition can soften stereotypes. Before visiting a place, people sometimes hold simplified ideas about other cultures. Real interactions reveal much greater complexity. Individuals rarely match the stereotypes we imagine. Travel can therefore expand emotional understanding. Instead of viewing cultures as distant or abstract, travelers begin associating them with real people and relationships. That personal connection strengthens empathy.
Empathy can influence behavior even after the journey ends. People may become more curious about global issues. They may listen more carefully to different viewpoints. The experience encourages openness.
In that sense, travel becomes more than entertainment. It becomes a form of education. Each interaction adds another layer of understanding about the world. The traveler learns not only about places, but about people.
And perhaps that is why travel often leaves a lasting impression. The memories are not only landscapes or landmarks, they are conversations, shared experiences, and new perspectives. Those moments shape how we see others.
Something many travelers do not expect is the feeling that appears after returning home. We often imagine the difficult part is adapting to a new country, but sometimes the real surprise happens when the journey ends. Returning home can feel strangely unfamiliar. Psychologists sometimes call this experience reverse culture shock. After living in another environment for a long time, people become used to different routines and perspectives. Coming back to the old environment can feel disorienting.
Yes, the traveler has changed during the journey. New habits, ideas, and perspectives develop along the way. But home often looks exactly the same as before. That contrast can create a strange emotional gap. Friends and family may expect everything to feel normal again. From their perspective, nothing has changed. Yet the traveler may see familiar places with completely new eyes. The environment feels both familiar and distant.
Even small details can feel different. The pace of life, conversations, or social habits may seem unusual. Things that once felt ordinary now attract attention. The traveler notices contrasts more clearly. At the same time, it can be difficult to explain the experience. Memories from travel may feel very intense and meaningful, but everyday life at home quickly returns to its routine. The transition takes time.
Eventually, most people adapt again. They integrate the new perspectives into their daily life. The journey becomes part of their personal story. The lessons remain, even after the trip ends.
In that sense, reverse culture shock shows how deeply travel can influence perspective. The traveler returns to the same physical place, but mentally and emotionally, they are no longer exactly the same person. People often say that travel automatically changes a person. It's a popular idea in books, movies, and social media. The message usually sounds simple: visit new places, and you will return as a different person. But reality is often more complicated. Travel does not transform everyone in the same way. Sometimes people visit another country, but stay inside familiar routines. They speak mostly with other travelers and follow a fixed tourist schedule. In those cases, the experience may remain superficial.
Yes, the depth of change depends on engagement. If someone only observes a place from the outside, they may not truly interact with the culture around them. The trip becomes entertainment rather than exploration. Mindset also plays an important role. Travel can offer new perspectives, but the traveler must be willing to question their assumptions. Without that openness, change is less likely.
Another myth is that travel solves personal problems. Some people believe a journey will automatically bring clarity or happiness. But emotional challenges often follow us wherever we go. Travel can offer reflection, but it rarely provides instant solutions. Social media sometimes reinforces these myths. Photos of beautiful landscapes and inspirational quotes create a powerful narrative. Travel looks like a constant moment of transformation. The complex reality behind those images is rarely shown.
That doesn't mean travel lacks value. It can still be deeply meaningful and educational. But the transformation usually comes from reflection and engagement, not simply from the act of moving between places.
In other words, travel creates opportunities for change. Whether change actually happens depends on how we approach those experiences. Curiosity, openness, and reflection make the difference. The journey becomes meaningful when we truly interact with the world around us. After discussing all these ideas, it seems that travel is less about places and more about perspective. Visiting new locations introduces unfamiliar cultures, habits, and environments, but the deeper lesson often comes from how we interpret those experiences. Travel invites us to see the world with wider eyes. One important realization is that our way of living is only one possibility among many. Different cultures organize life in different ways. People communicate, celebrate, and solve problems differently. Seeing those variations expands our understanding.
Yes, travel reminds us how diverse human experience can be. At the same time, It also reveals something surprising. Despite cultural differences, many human values remain similar. People everywhere care about family, relationships, and meaningful work. That balance between difference and similarity can change perspective. Travelers may become more curious and less judgmental. Instead of assuming one correct way to live, they begin appreciating multiple viewpoints.
Travel can also encourage humility. When we enter unfamiliar environments, we realize how much there is still to learn about the world. That awareness can deepen respect for other cultures. Ultimately, the value of travel may lie in reflection. Experiences on the road invite us to question assumptions. Those reflections can shape how we see people, cultures, and ourselves. The journey continues even after we return home.
If you enjoyed today's conversation, please like this video and subscribe to the channel. We share English listening podcasts about psychology, culture, and everyday life. Your support helps the channel grow. Thank you for listening.
And we would love to hear from you. Has travel ever changed your perspective? Share your experience in the comments below. Your story might inspire other listeners.
Thanks for spending this time with us today. See you in the next episode. Goodbye.